We're joined now by Craig Gilbert, our Washington bureau chief, to talk about the twists and turns and ups and downs and wiggles and waggles in Washington this week. This is not an episode of Scandal we're talking about. We're talking about the Trump White House and the James Comey situation, who was fired earlier this week by Donald Trump. Craig, can you give us a sense of all this? There's so much back and forth here. How does Donald Trump come off in this scenario where he's firing the person who's leading an investigation into his campaign and the Russian ties and so forth?
Not well, I don't think. I mean, it's more of a sense. I mean, it's sort of a growing and ongoing and growing sense of kind of chaos here in Washington, and the Republican Party has not, is sticking by. The members of Congress are largely sticking by Donald Trump, but obviously it's created an uproar here. I think if you look at there's more polling out this morning by Quinnipiac about Trump's numbers, which if anything have gotten a little bit worse. And this episode, I think, tends to kind of reinforce the soft spots in his public perceptions, which go to temperament and trustworthiness. The public sort of perceives him as a strong man, which this may reinforce, but it also has big reservations about his temperament and about his evenness and judgment and honesty. And so the questions surrounding the firing of Comey, when they involve the investigation of Trump's campaign and the president himself, to some degree, I think tend to reinforce that. So I don't think this is going to help the president's public standing, and in some ways, I think it creates some uncertainty even about his standing with Republicans in Congress, even though they aren't breaking with him. There's huge concerns among Republican lawmakers about their own agenda and passing an agenda in this environment.
Well, yeah, for them, certainly any distraction like this doesn't help. But let's talk just very briefly on, I mean, Democrats are saying that a special prosecutor is warranted here. For our viewers, how does a special prosecutor on a practical basis differ from what the FBI is doing?
Well, it just creates a different sort of power base for an investigation that is one more step removed, even though the FBI is supposed to be investigating independently from the president. As we've just seen, the director of the FBI serves at the pleasure of the president. A special prosecutor would be one more step, I think, would be at more arm's length from the president, creates more independence. These special prosecutors, special investigations tend to have a momentum of their own. And so I think the reason why presidents are reluctant to go there is because they know that they can't predict what's going to happen at the end of that path.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Paul Ryan and the other members of our delegation here in Wisconsin. Paul Ryan, for instance, has resisted the call for a special prosecutor, saying that that's not warranted yet. But how do you think they're reacting to this issue this week, and how are they positioning themselves with the voters here in Wisconsin?
Yeah, there's only one Republican member of Congress from Wisconsin that I'm aware of right now that has sort of expressed concerns about the firing. That's freshman Republican Mike Gallagher of Green Bay. He's called the timing suspicious. He says he has concerns about it and questions about it. That's further than his other colleagues from the state on the Republican side of the aisle have gone. And Paul Ryan, as you noted, came out last night after some initial silence and stood behind the president's decision. So it's another case where sort of the Republican leadership in particular has been faced with a choice of whether to back up the president or break with the president on a big issue like this, and they've chosen to stick with him. What that means for them down the road, or what it means for their agenda, remains to be seen. But there is a lot of concern among Republicans about what this situation is going to do to an already huge lift, which is getting a health care bill passed in the Senate, and then getting the House and the Senate to agree on that, much less on really thorny issues like tax reform.